we as leaders are writing payroll checks. And I think of, let's just say this guy, paid him $100,000 a year, and he said, I'll be 60% productive if you just leave me alone. I'm like, the value of that information, to know that, one, he's been on my team for a long time, but what if I know that about people that I'm bringing on?
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larsen. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. What if you could get more out of your team, and your team could be happier by helping you grow your business? That's what we're going to talk about on today's podcast with Matt White. Matt is a trusted advisor and culture index consultant to CEOs of fast-growing companies across the country. His expertise centers around impacting top and bottom line results by helping CEOs, entrepreneurs, business leaders build the right team around them to scale. He lives in Nashville and prioritizes time with his beautiful daughter and wife. As a partner in an Inc. 5000 fitness startup, Matt used Culture Index program to scale aggressively. His entrepreneurial experience is rooted in opening several corporate locations and 35 franchise locations in under 4 years. He decided to exit the fitness business in 2017 to help CEOs and business leaders and entrepreneurs achieve their goals faster with the Culture Index program. He finds great joy in helping difference makers scale and get what they want out of their businesses and teams. And we're going to show you how in just 7 minutes, you can figure out the same metrics to help you and your team scale as well. Matt, I'm excited to have you on the show. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing really well. Excited to be here. It's always good to see you, man. It's been a while, so excited to be here.
I know. We were catching up via email, and for the audience, I got introduced to Matt at a mastermind, and I took what's called a culture index, and I went through this, and I end up sitting with Matt at lunch, and he starts talking about me like he knew me. And I was like, wow. I was like, how do you know all this stuff? He goes, I read your culture index. And it was like he was looking right through me. And as a business owner, I was like, man, I can't wait. I can't wait to learn more about this. So when Matt and I were connecting, I said, how have you not been on the podcast? So I'm super excited, Matt, for you to share more about what you do and a little bit about your background and how you got to where you
Yeah.
are today.
Well, thank you. And it was a little bit of a tee up for me because you and I have almost the same culture index profile. So when I read yours back, it's pretty easy for me to nail that one. So yeah, background. I was actually, a lot of people don't know this now, but I was actually in college ministry for up until I was 31, and decided it was time to leave ministry. And I loved it, had a good run there. But honestly, for the past few years of that time there, I was just bored. I didn't have enough challenge. And so I was like, all right, so I'm 31, I'm getting in the business world, and I don't have any business experience. So I need a crash course. So it's this little company called Iron Tribe Fitness out of Birmingham, Alabama, that had just started. And I
Yeah.
was a member and of the gym, and had a talk with Forrest, the founder, and Jim Cavall, who is I am a partner at that time, and we had been teammates in college together, so I knew him, and joined with Iron Tribe and opened a couple of gyms. Then we began to franchise it, and it was fantastic experience to learn how to build and grow a business, and then also learn
Yeah.
how do you think about building a franchise model.
Yeah.
'Cause one thing to build a business here where you can control that, but how do you build that and how do you systematize it to be able to scale it where you're not there? And so
Yes.
great experience, and still good friends with those guys. And um, but we got exposed to this program, became clients, and then put it in our business. About a year later, I exited Iron Tribe and started with this. And I would say I'm just leaving a workshop right now, and I told the class this morning, I said that I didn't know that this stuff existed prior to this, but
Yeah.
it's just called psychometrics. It's psychology and statistics and probability. And when you get those two together, it's human analytics. And so for a lot
Yeah.
of us, we're analytically minded, and
Yeah.
it felt like I got a cheat sheet on how to know how someone's wired up,
Yeah.
what their natural strengths are, what they're going to do when no one's watching, where do they fit in the business, and then really, like, how do you design a team to scale and be independent and autonomous and drive revenue, profitability without you having to be there. And it was
Yeah.
kind of like magic.
I love it. Yeah, and it's my first experience with this world was with my wife, and we were actually, you don't know this story, but we were in a business coaching program together because she was going out on her own as an architect, and we were working together in our real estate business. So we got introduced to this coach, and he had us go through, I forget the exact testing it was, and he said to me, Matt, he goes, well, this is interesting. He goes, I find that there are, as couples that are business partners, there's two that do really well. Those that are very similar and those that are different, like opposites. And I already knew. He goes, you and your wife are opposite. He goes, but Chris and Jessica, he goes, I've never seen this before. And he put the scores up, and out of 100 on each level, he overlaid our scores. He goes, you guys almost have a perfect score combined on every area. He goes, you guys are like perfect complements to each other. He goes, but you communicate in very different ways. So we're going to work on your communication and allowing each of you to work on the right part of the business. And we went on
Mhm.
to, do very well together. And one of I think our biggest accomplishment was we built the house that my studio's in right now. And it was great because she did what she was good at. I did what I was good at, picking out the land, putting the vision together, and letting her focus on, the details and the tasks. But the whole time we worked really hard. And as you and I were chatting before the podcast here today, we continually, work on our communication, which has helped strengthen us as partners in marriage, but also as business partners. So if you're listening today, even if you don't have a business, this is something that can really help in every aspect of your life, in my opinion. So Matt, let's dive a little deeper. So I'm sorry, psychometrics or psychoanalytics is the term.
Yeah. Well, it's psychometrics, but
Yeah,
then I also refer to it as human analytics.
human analytics. Got it. Got it. Yeah. So where did this come from? What was the genesis of this concept?
Well, I mean, if we talk about personality traits, that goes back to like the Desert Fathers way back when with like melancholy and sanguine and like that. And then, I
Yeah.
mean, you can fast forward through, a lot of people have heard of uh, DISC or, like a four
Yep. Yeah, I was a
quadrant.
disc trainer. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, DISC is, I think it was by William Moulton Marston in like the 30s or something like that. I don't know, maybe he's the grandfather, something like that. But
Yeah.
people have been studying psychology and personality for a long time.
Yeah.
Our particular business started in '99. Took them about 5.5 years to build this 7-minute survey, and
Wow.
so
Five years for a 7-minute survey. There you go. And by the way, if you're listening, we're going to give you a link in the show notes here. You can take a look here so you can get that survey yourself.
mhm. Yeah, happy to interpret those results. So, um, yeah, it took a while to build this thing and a lot of money, and but then it went live in 2004, and uh, probably 60 or 70 independent licensees like me around the country, and I don't know how many clients totally there are. I just have my practice here in Nashville and around the country, and so it's
Yeah.
been a while.
So
Been around a
so
while.
who are your main clients, Matt? Obviously, I talked about, my wife and I, using something similar here, to help out, in our marriage and our business. Are you working with individuals? Are you working with business owners? Are you working with, employees at big companies? Who are your main clients?
Yeah, what I'd say it's changed over time. When I
Yeah.
first started and bootstrapped this and had no income, I would sign up anybody that had a pulse that would pay me to run their business. So it's gotten a little bit more selective since then.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's industry agnostic, um, because we're not looking. This is built around our instrument is built around understanding how a person is naturally wired up, what their
Hmm.
superpowers are, how they're going to communicate, measuring risk tolerance, how they make decisions, and things like that. And then we're looking at that, and then what do we need out of specific roles in our company,
Yeah.
and we're overlaying that so then when we get someone who's really wired up for that role,
Hmm.
um, we say, yeah, they're going to work well in there, but we help our clients on the front end of this selection process, but I'd say probably only 20 to 25% of my time is helping the clients around, okay, what are we looking for in this role? The
Right.
bulk of what we're doing is, you had kind of mentioned this at the beginning of like working with people. So we study 19 patterns in our specific program. And what we're really trying to do is like, like I mentioned, I was able to read yours to you because we have the same profile.
Right.
But out in business, very rarely are you working with someone who is just like you. But yet I was
Yeah.
actually in North Carolina last week at a client,
Yeah.
and one of their core values on the wall was we treat other people the way you want to be treated. And I stopped a shop and said, we probably need to take this down because that's actually a terrible strategy based off
Yeah.
our data and understandings that there's 19 patterns, then roughly 5% of the world has your pattern. And so why we have
Interesting.
so many communication problems, why we have so many unmet expectations when we put somebody in this role is if
Yeah.
I treat you the way I want to be treated statistically, I'm going to miss it. 95% of the people aren't like me. What we're
Yeah.
really trying to do is equip leaders and business owners with like, hey, here's what you need to do to lead, to manage, to motivate, to communicate more effectively with the other 18 animals in the zoo so you don't run them off. Right. And so you asked
Yeah.
about, the specific businesses and things like that. I mean, um, we had initially started out with the business owner or the CEO
Hmm.
and talked to them about what the business goals are. And I would say that this program is really designed for organizations that are trying to scale aggressively. So we don't do a lot of like individuals, it's not like career coaching, thing like that, but we're
Yeah.
able to come inside those CEOs and when they say, I'll just to give you an example. I was on the phone with a guy yesterday out of Toronto, just bought by private equity, and he said they're going to help us, and they hadn't had a sales team, but done really well. And he said they've already told us they want us to 5x revenue in the next 3 years, and then there's another exit. And so
Yeah.
we're what we love when we chomp at the bit on that kind of opportunity where it's that, okay, so we're going to
Yeah.
take here and 5x to see in 3 years. We know what kind of horsepower you have to have in a sales team, and we also know why this salesperson might be very good at salesperson, but might not be a sales leader
Right. Right.
because you might need more people skill in a sales role, but more strategy in a sales leader role, and
Yeah.
so we're able to like help companies design teams to scale revenue and profitability.
Yeah.
So industry agnostic. I mean,
Yeah.
everywhere from manufacturing to healthcare to I mean, you name it. I've got clients all over the board.
Yeah. Yeah. What struck me when we were having lunch that day is, and maybe it was in the classroom, but you said to me, Chris, you're unemployable. And I was like, what? I was like, unemployable. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I have my own business. And you came to say, yeah, Chris, you like to lead and, come up with your own concepts and do that. But what it dawned on me is it reminded me of one of the leaders I worked with when I was moving from sales into leadership. And he said, Chris, he goes, you got some work to do before you move into management. He goes, I wish, I wish I had 100 of you, but I only got like maybe 10 of you on my sales team. He goes, and as a manager, you can't just work with people that are like you. You've got to learn to work with the other 90% that you're not
Mm,
like, very similar to what you said. And I spent 18 months, a wonderful leader, because he said to me, and Chris, I'm going to help you get there by building the skill set and the understanding of how to work with other people. And I think we did DISC in that
mhm.
in that training, and ultimately went on to teach DISC, with my sales teams, which was definitely helpful. But Matt, one of the things that was cool is you compared some of the other psychometric analysis
Yep.
systems that are out there, and the specific system that you use with Culture Index. If you don't mind sharing, the predictability of success, how this is different than some of the other systems that are out there.
Yeah, yeah. So you're talking about just the reliability of the data.
Reliability, yeah,
It's reliability.
yeah,
And so ours is a 91% statistically reliable. And, a lot of the different instruments vary based off the construction or the design of the instrument.
yeah.
And ours particularly is a free choice checklist. And
Hmm.
so it's not like, hey, click the word that describes you most or least. It's just click words that describe you.
Right.
And, it's kind of like magic. I still don't know how it produces such scary, accurate results. But by
Yeah.
just clicking this word list, 174 adjectives,
Yeah.
and we know very precisely like how much, I mentioned you when you talked about the, unemployable and that construct.
Yeah.
I want to know that that trait is mirroring an inner-directed ecosystem, and you have more of it than 98 or 95% of the people on the planet. I know you want to decide your future.
Hmm.
And so we don't have to. I think that's what I like about it. And sometimes it can
Yeah.
come across as like kind of arrogant, like how you're really confident in this. And I'd say I'm only confident in it because I've just seen the accuracy and the reliability of it so much. But
Yeah.
when you can lean in, when you know this is accurate and you've got more of this trait or less of this trait than 98% of the people on the planet, it it doesn't lie. And it's
Yeah.
and you can bank on it.
Yeah. And the cool thing, the way you guys apply it is you don't say, hey, this is how you are. Good luck. You say, hey, you match it to the roles that require those traits and tailor people's natural talents and natural drivers where as you mentioned, like where your genius is, what feels good, and everybody can sit here and close your eyes that's listening and think, like, what do I love, what I hate about my job? And it's like, well, if you could do what you love to do every day, you're going to be happier, you're going to be more successful, you're going to be more energetic.
Yeah, like I just said, I was leaving this workshop. I had a guy in there, and we're
Yeah.
measuring. One of the constructs we measure is how much confidence one gets from social acceptance in
Hmm.
people. And
Yeah.
he has less of that need than 98% of the people on the planet. And I joked about him.
Yeah. It's,
I
I
said,
think,
"Thank you for coming out of your cave to join us today." I said, "But speaking of that, I said, how much more productive would you be if you just could come to work for 2 hours? In the first 2 hours of the day, you don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have
yeah.
to answer any dumb questions." And he smiled and he said, "A lot." And I said, "Put a percentage on it." He said, 60%. And
Wow.
so think about if we as leaders are writing payroll checks, and I think of, let's just say this guy, paid him $100,000 a year, and he said, "I'll be 60% more productive if you just leave me alone." I'm like, the value of that information to know that one, he's been on my team for a long time, but what if I know that about new people that I'm bringing on? So when we're trying
Yeah.
to scale, a lot of times you get entrepreneurs and they're hiring their friends and families and people that they know really well. That strategy for building a team runs that it doesn't work anymore when you run out of your contacts. So then it's like we're bringing on new people and we're having to take a real risk. This is giving us data on this is what this person's going to be doing in 90 days. And I don't have to
Yeah.
wait 90 days to figure out what's going to happen here.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it also makes me think of Moneyball. I love that book.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
Michael Lewis is one of my favorite authors. I've read all of his books, just about all of them. There's probably one or two I've missed here. So I won't say I read all of them. After this podcast, I'm going to go look and see what I've missed. But yeah, I love that book. Love the movie. And it reminded me, it's like you got a bunch of nerds in a back room, and they're just looking at players and their statistical likelihood to do well in their position. And they don't have to be the superstars that are out there hitting home runs. Yeah, that drives, you know, viewership, but what also drives viewership? Wins. And as an entrepreneur and as an investor, we want to hit consistent singles and doubles, maybe the odd triple, but we want to get runs on the board. You don't have to hit home runs every time. You just need the right people in the right spot, playing the right position, and as a team, you can win. And that's what I love about that story with Moneyball. I mean, Brad Pitt's cool. That's I think why my wife watched the movie. But
For sure.
I'm more of a Jonah. Was it Jonah Hill? Is that or Jonah
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
Hill fan? I'm probably more of a Jonah. I think that guy's hilarious. But
Yeah. I mean,
um,
so that's cybermetric or sabermetrics, and then you
interesting.
psycho.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of the same principle, and
Yeah.
then they talk about it, it's like they drafted and built that team where they were finding players not built around hype or how they
Yeah.
showed up on time in the combine or whatever it is, but it
Yeah.
was like off of the statistics. And that's really what we're doing with business owners is we're coming in and saying, okay, well, let's look,
Yeah.
because like again, we talked about this today. We talked some about interviewing. It's like, what do you see in a person when they're interviewing? It's not who they are.
Right.
That's why
Yeah.
we typically, I stole this out of Vistage, I think it was, but I heard it and I was like, man, this is so true. And they said, we typically hire people for what they know and then fire them for who they are. And I'm
Interesting.
like, that aligns with my experience.
Yeah.
And it's like if we can find out who is that, and not just not from a character and value standpoint, because we don't
Yeah.
measure that, but like
Right.
what are the motivational drives? Meaning, what's this person going to do effortlessly? Well, if I can find that out, and let's say, for example, let's boil it down. Let's say this person just really plays offense very well. Well, if I can find that out and I put them in an offensive role instead of playing defense, chances are we're going to win a lot more in that role. So
I love that.
big,
And
big
say that again.
one,
We hire people for what they know. We
what
fire
they
people
know.
for who they are.
Yeah. Hmm.
I love that. I love that. Um, that's terrific. And is this similar? You know, I was just talking to another person, and I was like, "Hey, how did you meet your wife?" And they said, "Oh, it was on one of these dating apps." Very successful business owner, never been married before. He's similar age as me in his late 40s. Meets his now wife, and they go out on this date, and it was just he's like, it was like amazing because we were just so aligned and we were already talking about our future and all this. Um, and, I had a friend of my wife's about 10, 15 years ago, and she's like, well, what would you do, Chris, if you were, dating today? I go, I would probably go on like Match.com. And she goes, seriously? Because it had a stigma back then, 15, 20
Yeah.
years
Right.
ago. It had a stigma. It's like, oh, it's like, it is kind of lame. It's like, wait, you can't meet somebody like, you can't just go meet somebody going out and doing these things. But if you're like, my friend who's same age as me, and you're working a tremendous amount, and you want to find a partner, um, hey, you can go and you can take a similar test. Is that the same thing, Matt, or how is that different? For people that are familiar
Oh,
with
yeah,
that.
I can't speak into the dating world around this and specifically with our program. We don't really do love.
Yeah,
Um, but I joke about this with clients in our workshop when we do talk hiring. And I say, well, like, if you think about it, like, what influences how historically how you've made decisions about who to hire? And it usually
right.
comes back with like, I got a good feeling about them and I like them.
Yeah,
Like, okay, that's not wrong.
right.
But in my experience, because I did that, oh, I liked him. But
Sure.
about 90 or 120 days later, when they sucked at that job, I stopped liking them.
Yep.
And so
Yeah, and then
whether or
your
not I like
relationship
somebody,
devolves, and
yeah,
absolutely.
whether or
Yeah.
not I like somebody doesn't mean that they're actually going to be good at the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And that's what we need. We need effective people in the job. That makes them happy. That makes us happy as business
Right.
owners. Whether we're out there as a leader in the business or whether we're out there running our own business, and we need to put these people in place. And yeah, this information is super valuable. And again, we were teaching metrics to our sales reps so that they could interact with all these different surgeon, personalities that they're going out for. And simple thing, like I think if you're listening today and you're like, okay, I'm going to check out this survey at the end of the podcast and do this and see how it can relate to my business. That's great. I think one of the easy things you can do, I always talk to whenever I get into a new role, Matt, I'd say to my sales leader, and I'd also say to my employees, I'd say like, well, how do you want to be communicated to? And their eyes would light up because I hate it when people would leave me like voice messages. And I'm like, why are
Mhm.
you leaving me a 3-minute voice message? Like, just, send me
Mhm.
a text or send me an email, and doing that. And everybody's eyes would light up, and it made it so much easier. Our communication was always so much better. Any tips that you can give the listeners today, outside of the survey, to how to better communicate with their teams if they're in a team today, if they're working with people today, that you've learned through this experience and that
I've
you've
got, I've got
approached?
one thing, and
Yeah.
here's why is because, with the nature of what we do, we the data that the analytics that we collect are like very
Mm.
precise. So for
Right.
example, you know, you and I are the same pattern, but if we
Yeah.
were to shift one of the traits by a standard deviation, it changes the way you communicate. Here's what I would see, because
Yeah.
I get this a lot with consulting with my CEOs and owners. They'll call me up and they'll want to talk about somebody who's just underperforming.
Yeah.
What I've seen is there is a gap or a disparity in most cases, because when I'll talk to that owner and they'll tell me what's happening, and then I'll stop and say, okay, from scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate Chris right now? And they'd be like 5, 6, whatever. I said, okay, I went to Chris and I asked Chris, how do you think you're doing in your job? What would he say? Almost always my clients will be like, they probably say like an 8,
So
or
there's a
well,
gap there.
what's
Yeah.
so the gap is this is what I see in terms of communication.
Yeah.
Because there's all kinds of nuances about communication from based on our emotional drives. You voicemail, it's like not, I don't want to scroll. You send me an email and I got to scroll on that thing, I don't respond to it, right? That's my community. But anyway, what I see for business owners is if there's a miscommunication, but between how you see your player doing and how they see themselves doing. And it's like if we can get level up and on the same playing field of them being right where they are in your
Yeah.
eyes then you can really address the problem more because a lot of times they don't know that Patrick Lencioni wrote a book called Three
Yeah.
Signs of a Miserable Job.
Yep. Met
And
Patrick. Yeah.
one of those signs was immeasurement. And he said when people come to work, they weren't clear on what they were being measured on. And I see that a lot in business owners of like, especially entrepreneurs, self-sufficient, self-starters, independent people. They expect everybody else to be like them, you know, and a lot of times they gather people around who are really good at taking orders. Because if you're an entrepreneur, typically you're like decisive, I want to do this, and I just need somebody to help me take some stuff on my plate. And
Yeah.
so what makes somebody a good person who can take orders is the opposite of what makes someone a really good entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then they get frustrated because they're expecting their person that really helped them do all these tasks to then become autonomous and independent. And it's like it doesn't work. But anyway,
Great
back to your
lesson. Yeah.
communication piece. I'll just say this. It's like if I'm a business owner listening to this, and when somebody comes to mind of this person's on the struggle bus, you ought to be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, what would I rate them? And will they tell me that same rating? Chances are they don't. If that's the case, then that's communication that is your problem because you have failed to communicate clearly about where they are, what they're doing. And I actually picked
Yeah.
this up from time in ministry. We would always focus about this because we were all about people development.
Yeah.
And I remember one mentor, he always said, man, there's 3 questions that you need to know how to answer as a leader. Where are we now?
Hmm.
Where are we going? And what's the next step? And I apply that into coaching my CEOs when they're talking about somebody. Okay, where is Chris now? He's a
Yeah.
6. We want to take him to an 8. So what needs to change? What's the next step? Then that's what you and Chris need to talk about.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you were saying. And I always like to say what's measured matters. And if something it didn't seem like one of my team members was performing, I'd say, well, am I actually measuring this? Am I sharing with them that I'm measuring this and are we communicating about it? Because that's what they would focus on. And it's hard when you're in sales because there's so many different components that are out there. And you got the company that's saying, oh, you got to be measuring this. And it's like, well, what do you really care as long as we're hitting the revenue number? But it's like, well, I guess we got to focus on that too. And sales guys are good at selling. They're not always good at logistics and inventory management and keeping costs down, right? Because they're just focused on the top line. So I love that. What's measured matters. And I love that. Where are we now? Where are we
Yeah.
going? And what's the next step? So Matt, for those leaders, for those entrepreneurs, for those of us that are in business that are out there, and they said, "Well, I know where I want to go. I know where I am today, and I'm ready to take the next step." What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, the survey link will be in the notes.
Yep, right
Um,
down below here.
you take that survey link, and either me or one of my colleagues will give you 15 minutes. It only takes about 7 minutes, give you 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll just read the data just like I did with you. And then normally, a lot of business owners will say, can I look at this on my executive team? And we say, well, let's go a step further. Let's collect the data on your executive team, 8 to 10 top performers, and then 8 to 10 people that are really struggling. Because
Mhm.
it's one thing to like read, like, oh, wow, that's true. That's who I am. It's another thing when we could say, hey, here's Chris, here's his potential. He's got more potential to drive revenue and growth in your organization than 95% of the people on the planet. And right now in his job, he's leaving 50% of that on the table. So it's a huge opportunity. We need to look into why that is.
Yeah,
And so when we do a demo, we kind of like you know, pull the hood up and look at really what's under the hood.
yeah, I love that.
So we,
People are our number one resource in business, and you help the leaders that are out there tune the engines of their employees and get the most out of them, Matt. So thank
yeah,
you so
yeah, it's
much.
like we're measuring potential
Yeah,
And to what degree are we optimizing that potential? Like if I've got a 400 horsepower sales engine, we can tell you're running at 250 horsepower. And here's how you get more out of that engine.
I love it. I love it. So if you want to get more out of your engine, if you want to get more out of your team's engine, reach out to Matt. We got the link in the show notes here down below. Matt, it's always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with the audience here today.
You bet. Thanks for the invite. It's good to see you.
Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.